Hi there, my name is Megan, again, back here with a video for you. Most of my videos are pretty upbeat and talk about, not so serious stuff, but I do have something that I want to share because I feel it's necessary to share, and I feel that it'll help other people to understand me, as well as people that have chronic illnesses or invisible illnesses, as they tend to be called, and seen or not seen, as the case may be. So I have fibromyalgia, and I have this other thing nobody knows about, or heard of, I should say, called hemicrania continua. I just found out I have gastroparesis. I'm not here for pity. I'm just saying I have these conditions, and not usually can anyone see them outwardly. Okay? You don't usually... I do my best anyway to not have people see the outward signs of my conditions, and I push myself to do what I can on a daily basis. And then usually I'm pretty good. I mean, usually I'm okay. Things have gotten rough. I've had a rough patch as of late, and it's hard to not be able to do the stuff that I did do, or make decisions and choices about things. And I feel guilty and bad about things that I can't do or want to do and can't do. It's hard to explain to people, and I want people to understand that, that old saying, it's me, it's not you, it's me, and that it's true. And I don't, I just want people to understand. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there like me, who feel the same way. And so there's this thing out there called the spoon theory. It's by Christine Miserandino. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it was introduced to me by my very dear, close family in Florida, Nick and Lorelei. That's where I initially heard about the spoon theory. Unfortunately, they have use of it themselves. And I say unfortunately because once I read it and you understand what it's about, you'll know why it's not a good thing to be able to use the spoon theory. But it's good to be able to use the spoon theory to be able to communicate with others how you're feeling and where you're at for the day. So, that being said, I want to read to you The Spoon Theory by Christine Miserandino, however you pronounce it, so that you can understand exactly what, so you can understand. The Spoon Theory by Christine Miserandino. My best friend and I were in the diner talking. As usual, it was very late, and we were eating French fries with gravy. Like normal girls our age, we spent a lot of time in the diner while in college, and most of the time we spent talking about boys, music, or trivial things that seemed very important at the time. We never got serious about anything in particular, and spent most of our time laughing. As I went to take some of my medicine with a snack, as I usually did, she watched me with an awkward kind of stare, instead of continuing the conversation. She then asked me out of the blue what it felt like to have lupus and be sick. I was shocked, not only because she asked the random question, but also because I assumed she knew all there was to know about lupus. She came to doctors with me. She saw me walk with a cane and throw up in the bathroom. She had seen me cry in pain, and what else was there to know? I started to ramble on about pills and aches and pains, but she kept pursuing and didn't seem satisfied with my answers. I was a little surprised, as being my roommate in college and friend for years, I thought she already knew the medical definition of lupus. Then she looked at me with a face every sick person knows very well, the face of pure curiosity about something no one healthy can truly understand. She asked what it felt like, not physically, but what it felt like to be me, to be sick. As I tried to gain my composure, I glanced around the table for help or guidance, or at least stall for time to think. I was trying to find the right words. How do I answer a question I was never able to answer for myself? How do I explain every detail of every day being affected and give the emotions a sick person goes through with clarity? I could have given up, cracked a joke like I usually do, and changed the subject, but I remember thinking that if I don't try to explain this, how could I ever expect her to understand? And if I can't explain this to my best friend, How can I explain my world to anyone else? I had to at least try. At that moment, the spoon theory was born. I quickly grabbed every spoon on the table. Hell, I grabbed spoons off of other tables. I looked at her in the eyes and said, "Here you go. You have lupus." She looked at me slightly confused, as anyone would when they are being handed a bouquet of spoons. The cold metal spoons clanked in my hands as I grouped them together and shoved them into her hands. I explained that the difference in being sick and being healthy is having to make choices or to consciously think about things when the rest of the world doesn't have to. The healthy have the luxury of life without choices, a gift most people take for granted. Most people start the day with unlimited amount of possibilities and energy to do whatever they desire, especially young people. And for the most part, they do not need to worry about the effects of their actions. So, for my explanation, I used spoons to convey this point. I wanted something for her to actually hold, for me to then take away, since most people who get sick feel a loss of a life that they once knew. If I was in control of taking away the spoons, then she would know what it feels like to have someone or something else, in this case lupus, being in control. So I grabbed the spoons with excitement. She didn't understand what I was doing. She is always up for a good time, so I guess she thought I was cracking a joke of some kind, like I usually do when talking about touchy subjects. Little did she know how serious I would become. I asked her to count her spoons. She asked why, and I explained that when you're healthy, you expect to have a never-ending supply of spoons. But when you have to now plan your day, you need to know exactly how many spoons you're starting with. It doesn't guarantee that you might not lose some along the way, but at least it helps to know where you're starting. She counted out 12 spoons. She laughed and said she wanted more. I said, "No," and I knew right away that this little game would work when she looked disappointed, and we hadn't even started yet. I've wanted more spoons for years and haven't found a way yet to get more, so why should she? I also told her to always be conscious of how many she had, and not to drop them, because she can never forget that she has lupus. I asked her to list off the tasks of her day, including the most simple. As she rattled off daily chores or just fun things to do, I explained how each one would cost her a spoon. When she jumped right into getting ready for work as her first task of the morning, I cut her off and took away a spoon. I practically jumped down her throat. I said, "No, you don't get to just get up. You have to crack open your eyes and then realize you're late. You didn't sleep well the night before, and you have to crawl out of bed, and then you have to make yourself eat something before you can do anything else. Because if you don't, you can't take your medicine, and if you don't take your medicine, you might as well give up all your spoons for today and tomorrow, too." I quickly took away a spoon, and she realized that she hasn't even gotten dressed yet. Showering cost her a spoon, just for washing her hair and shaving her legs. Reaching high and low that early in the morning could actually cost more than one spoon, but I figured I would give her a break. I didn't want to scare her right away. Getting dressed was worth another spoon. I stopped her and broke down every task to show her how every little detail needs to be thought about. You cannot simply just throw clothes on when you're sick. I explained that I have to see what clothes I can physically put on. If my hands hurt that day, buttons are out of the question. If I have bruises that day, I need to wear long sleeves. And if I have a fever, I need a sweater to stay warm, and so on. If my hair is falling out, I need to spend more time to look presentable. And then you need to factor in another 5 minutes for feeling badly that it took you 2 hours to do all this. I think she was starting to understand when she theoretically couldn't even get to work, and she was left with 6 spoons. I then explained to her that she needed to choose the rest of her day wisely, since when your spoons are gone, they're gone. Sometimes you can borrow against tomorrow's spoons, but just think how tomorrow will be with less spoons. I also needed to explain that a person who is sick always lives with the looming thought that tomorrow may be the day that a cold comes, or an infection, or any number of things that could be very dangerous. So you don't want to run low on spoons because you never know when you truly will need them. I didn't want to depress her, but I needed to be realistic, and unfortunately, being prepared for the worst is part of a real day for me. We went through the rest of the day, and she slowly learned that skipping lunch would cost her a spoon, as well as standing on the train or even typing on her computer for too long. She was forced to make choices and think about things differently. Hypothetically, she had to choose not to run errands so that she could eat dinner that night. When we got to the end of her pretend day, she said she was hungry. I summarized that she had to eat dinner, but she only had 1 spoon left. If she cooked, She wouldn't have enough energy to clean the pots, and if she went out for dinner, she might be too tired to drive home safely. Then I also explained that I didn't even bother to add this into the game, that she was so nauseous that cooking was probably out of the question anyway. So she decided to make soup. It was easy. I then said, it is only 7 p.m. and you have the rest of the night, but maybe end up with 1 spoon, so you could do something fun, or clean your apartment, or do chores, but you can't do it all. I rarely see her emotional, so when I saw her upset, I knew maybe I was getting through to her. I didn't want my friend to be upset, but at the same time, I was happy to think that finally, maybe someone would understand me a little bit. She had tears in her eyes and asked quietly, "Christine, how do you do it? How do you really do this every day?" I explained that some days were worse than others. Some days I have more spoons than most. But I can never make it go away, and I can never forget about it. I always have to think about it. I handed her a spoon that I had been holding in reserve. I said simply, "I have learned to live life with an extra spoon in my pocket, in reserve, because you always need to be prepared." It's hard. The hardest thing I have ever had to learn to do is slow down and not do everything. I fight this to this day, and I hate feeling left out, having to choose to stay home or to not get things done that I want to. I wanted her to feel that frustration, and I wanted her to understand that everything everyone else does comes so easy, but for me it is 100 little jobs in one. I need to think about the weather, my temperature that day, the whole day's plans before I can attack any one given thing. When other people can simply do things, I have to attack it and make a plan like I'm strategizing a war. It is in that lifestyle, the difference between being sick and healthy. It is the beautiful ability to not think and just do. I miss that freedom. I miss never having to count spoons. After we were emotional and talked about this for a little while longer, I sensed she was sad. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe she realized that she never could truly and honestly say she understands. But at least now, she might not complain so much when I can't go out for dinner some nights, or when I never seem to make it to her house and she always has to drive to mine. I gave her a hug when we walked out of the diner. I had the 1 spoon in my hand and I said, "Don't worry, I see this as a blessing. I've been forced to think about everything I do, and do you know how many spoons people waste every day? I don't have time for wasted spoons. I don't have room or wasted spoons. I just want to choose to spend this time with you." Ever since this night, I have used the spoon theory to explain my life to people. In fact, my family and friends refer to spoons all the time. It has been a code word for what I can and cannot do. Once people understand the spoon theory, they seem to understand me better, and I also think that they live their life a little differently too. I think it isn't just good for understanding lupus, but for anyone dealing with any disability or illness. Hopefully, they don't take so much for granted, or their life in general. I give a piece of myself in every sense of the word when I do anything. It has become an inside joke. I have become famous for saying to people jokingly that they should feel special when I spend time with them because they have one of my spoons. The Spoon Theory by Christine Miserandino.